Okay, great. So welcome everyone. This is another installment of our routine Vanguard Lunch and Learns. For those of you who have been part of this before, we have been regularly scheduling bi-weekly educational events to try and get some really granular topical information about things that are very relevant right now. Of course, the one we have today is super relevant to what's going on in our world right now. And that's why, although we usually post these every other week, we decided it was important to get this information out as soon as possible. So we fit another one in this week as well. So I think you're really going to enjoy this presentation today. I will say next week, look out for our invite, which will be going out in the next day. Next week's topic is Social Security. And I think that, again, another very relevant topic that many people can get a lot of value out of. I do want to mention one thing before I introduce our speakers. For those of you who have not heard this before, the Vanguard Agency has formed a new partnership with EASE, which is a benefit administration technology. We're super excited about this because we are going to be able to provide to our clients full benefit administration services, onboarding capabilities, HR resources and tools, and that will be included in our service model for our clients. So super excited about that, to announce it. We will be talking to all of our clients about this as we renew, and some we will try to get the information out to even before they renew if your renewal had just passed. And certainly in the meantime, if you have needs for these type of services and want to reach out to us ahead of time, please contact us, and we'll definitely be able to have a conversation regarding your specific needs and how we can make your workflow when it comes to benefits and HR more efficient. That said, I want to, you can see on your screen right now, our title for today is COVID-19 Workplace Strategies. I think this is, again, super relevant to what's going on in our world right now, and we have two great speakers to present. I think to some degree, a lot of us are trying to figure out how to get back to the office or bring our employees back to the office if you were in a situation where you're either your entire office work from home or some of your office employees work from home. Some of us have been essential and have been working the entire time from the office, but still have to figure out ways to keep employees' minds at ease and have a safe work environment. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Our two presenters are Jane Brody and Ambar Margarita. Love that name, especially around 5 o'clock. Jane Brody is a commercial real estate professional. She has a degree from Pratt. She has two master's degrees in leadership from Columbia University. She is partners in a company called Vicus. Jane helped launch a mentoring program serving over 10,000 children and a foster care program to help over 8,000 teenagers in the system make the transition to independence. She was a consultant for Ben & Jerry's, UNICEF, the American Red Cross, Coca-Cola, and the Special Olympics, and the CEO of Variety International Children's Charity, and even an executive director for nonprofits along her career. Her partner, Ambar Margarita, is a principal at Spacesmith and has worked with leading global brands on diverse cross-section of architectural interior design projects. Ambar is an expert in the design of spaces, which contributes to employee safety, well-being, and satisfaction, and have healthy indoor air quality, access to quality views and daylight, plantings, and proper ergonomics. Ambar teaches in the Interior Design Bachelor's Program at the School of Visual Arts in New York, and is a founding member of the Latino American Commercial Real Estate Association. Ambar earned a Bachelor of Fine Arts in Interior Design from the School of Visual Arts. So impressive resumes for both of our speakers today. And I'd like to welcome you both to our Vanguard Lunch and Learn. And with that, I will turn it over to, I believe, Jane Brody, who will start the presentation. So thanks, Jane.
everybody. Good afternoon. We're just going to jump right in. Obviously, this is what a lot of offices look like now, but we're going to go right to the first slide. My focus is to talk a little bit about strategies and thinking about working with your landlord. The most important part is to have good communication with your landlord, making sure you're not in the rears and that you're actually paying rent. Hiding out isn't really a great solution. You want to make sure that you have ongoing conversations and actually talk about what the new norm is going to look like. Want to make sure that you're preserving your short-term cash would be your goal, while the landlord looks at long-term views. I'm a tenant rep broker, and we spend time working with our tenants and helping you coordinate those conversations. Click. Here are some strategies. And what's important to think about is if you have 3 to 6 months of deferred rent payments now, how is that going to affect you in 2021? Another scenario is people are thinking about is having free rent now and then extending your existing lease. What that really means is that you're getting a rent release and that you're paying back the landlord. It could be for the length of the lease or for a period of a year or two, depending on how much term you have left. Another possible scenario is to use your security, using your dollars effectively and then paying back the security deposit. If you have less than 3 years on your lease, we do something we call blend and extend, which is basically your space works for you, you really like it, you have a community that you want to serve in that area, or it's very good for your employees. You ask the landlord if they'll do, let's say, another 7 years on your lease, and then you can add some free rent into your deal now, which will help you with your immediate cash crunch, and then possibly get even a lower rent, and then resetting your real estate taxes. So if it's a space that's effective, that's another strategy. Another new strategy that we're working on is everyone's thinking, oh my God, restaurants are in so much trouble. This is obviously a big concern for retail and restaurants. They're actually doing percentage lease deals. So landlords get a capped amount or a specific percentage of net profits. And that really helps restaurants and retailers who are struggling with sales. And then the landlord is kind of a partner in this opportunity, kind of a joint venture approach. And then one last approach is if you have a very flexible relationship and you're comfortable opening your books to the landlord and actually figuring out what kind of rent payments you can make. So these are, I think this is the same slide? Yes. Okay. So the landlord is looking at the new norm, and we're looking at reductions of about 20%. And also just a tremendous reshuffling of sublets are huge in the market. And no one really knows when the market is going to bottom out at this point. It's typically 6 months after a reset period on the stock market. So these are, these are some solutions, rent relief. They're, come on, Paul.
Where's Oscar?
Right here.
Come on. Come on.
There's no longer long-term lease solutions, multiple months of free rent. Subletting is a huge opportunity, and landlords are eager to make deals. I hope you find this helpful, and I can answer some specific questions as we go forward. Yes, Tommy.
I have a quick question. So that I wrote down percentage lease deal. Was that the term you used, Jane? Percentage lease deal?
Yes. So for instance, if you're a restaurateur or a retailer and you are making a certain amount of money per month, instead of paying, a set amount of rent, you actually negotiate, for instance, 10% of your net profits goes to the landlord.
Is that is there precedent for something like that, or is that something like, is that brand new territory? Because I'm not familiar with that.
Brand new territory, and it really has to do with the fact that, you know, retail is suffering greatly, and landlords are trying to figure out ways where they can really be a partner
Mm.
with retailers and restaurateurs. It is challenging because there are very small profit margins
Yeah,
in these
yeah.
businesses.
It's super creative. I love the concept. I'd love to see, you know, retrospectively a year from now how it all played out, because it seems really cool.
And another thing that's also interesting is because the market is so rich with sublets. Typically, it's about 14% of the market. It's up to 24% of the market. And in 2008, we had 44% of the market with sublets. So if you want to jump into a cool space at a good deal for a couple years, it's a good idea if you can grab a sublet.
Can I ask another question,
Yeah.
Jane? You know, because we've had conversations about this, and I think it's important to a lot of businesses as well as nonprofit organizations. And you and I had a private conversation on it. Like, folks are now looking to. So if I had, I don't know, 8,000 square feet, and now the majority of my staff is going to permanently stay out of the office, I need less space. What is the term you used? It might just be as simple as renegotiate, but I thought there was some other term you used, how to help folks unwind a lease that they're in, or something to that effect.
Well, I mean, we've been talking about people shrinking their leases, but I think there's spaces. You have to look at how much term you have on your lease and figure out how you can get out of it. I mean, what Amber will talk about is even if you bring people back, you still need to social distance, and you might need more space for the next year or two. So the question is, what's the long-term space plan after we've kind of survived COVID? What is your current space? You could bring in another tenant to help you with the burden of it, but it has to do with the way your footprint lays out and how you can accommodate someone else in the space. You know, these are all go back to essential workers. How are we going to switch workforce and have people come different days? So it's kind of part of a bigger conversation, and no one really knows how long this is going to go on for. So the lease is a big expenditure for organizations, and it's certainly something that has to be dealt with a lot of communication. And I know that a lot of people got PPP grants and went to rent, but now that's kind of winding down, or there's another chance that we're going to get more grants. So it's all sort of up in the air.
Thank you.
Sure.
Right, so I'll be talking as a designer who focuses mainly on workplace design for a variety of nonprofits and universities. I'll be talking about a new normal when the soonest return to the office and what that should look like. There's also very interesting conversations to have about the future of workplace, but this is an immediate new normal upon return to the office, while we're still having precautions with the spread of the disease. So the new normal is cloth face coverings for everybody, constant hand washing, the distancing guidelines, self-monitoring and self-reporting of how your employees are feeling each day. A lot of companies are instituting 3 short questions on an app where employees report how they're feeling, in terms of physical health, if they've traveled anywhere, if they've been in contact with anybody who has reported to be sick. So just a questionnaire before people come into the office. One-way corridors, so you want to, people should be wearing face masks whenever they're not at their desks. But another thing we're seeing is one-way circulation, meaning that people walk in one way so that you don't have 2 people facing each other in the common areas. Disinfecting at least 3 times a day, and a deeper disinfecting at night, which is why a clean desk policy is a really good idea, because then your cleaning crew can actually disinfect surfaces and desk surfaces, conference rooms, communal spaces very well when they do their evening cleaning. And then temperature checks, we're seeing a lot. We actually have job sites that are open right now, meaning construction projects that are open. Anytime somebody gets onto the floor, or even before they get on the elevator, they are actually given a temperature check and it is logged in a record book. So this is all the new normal. Many of you have probably already gotten used to this by now. Then this is actually a floor plan. So what you're looking at is a cross section of a building lobby. And I really just want you to focus on the colors. This is what you might expect if you're in a high-rise building and more people start coming into the building. This is what you might expect. So we have low-rise elevators in yellow, mid-rise elevators in the bright green, and high-rise elevators in the blue. The red is actually the freight elevator. So all of your delivery services, your messenger, your mail, anything that's being picked up would be going through the back entrance of the freight. If you look outside the building, what we have are these little dash circles with numbers on them. This is really the queue when required outside of the building. So if all these queue lines, you'll see we have circles right in front of the elevators. We have circles outside beyond the turnstiles. We have 6-foot circles outside. This is the reception desk with the purple arrows for visitors. So everybody is essentially queuing at a socially distant space, so 6 feet apart. You should expect floor markings on the floor indicating where people should stand, and a monitor, person who is monitoring this process who is working for the building. What this means is that you might want to stagger, if you are in a high-rise building, you might want to stagger or have flexible work hours for the people who are coming into the office, because there might be a long wait. Eventually, there might be a long wait when they're trying to get into the office. And of course, elevator capacities have been greatly reduced. For example, in this particular building in the financial district, there used to be, I think, 10 people could fit into the elevator, and they have reduced this to 2 people standing on opposite ends of the elevator. So you can do the math and see how long it might take people to get up to their floors. Now here is a different building, and we're already up. This is a floor plan showing we're already in their floor plate. The area in gray is another tenant. This is a multi-tenant floor. So people would come up the elevators down here on the lower left, and they would go into the entry with the blue dots. This is before COVID. So this is showing a maximum capacity. If you look at the legend on the left side of the drawing, you'll see there's a maximum capacity of 39 people at any given time in this space. So the reception area has space for 3 people in the blue dots. We have 13 workstations in the pink. We have 1 private office with a few guest chairs. We have 1 large meeting room for 10 people over here with the orange dots. And we have a smaller meeting room with media for 3 people in the orange dots on the lower right. We also have a pantry with 4 chairs in the bluish purple color. And then we have a copy room, which could probably fit 4 people. We also have restrooms on the lower right with 2 stalls and 2 lavatories. If we look at this on a return to the office strategy, we are looking at a capacity of 17. So we went from 39 folks to 17 people in this space at any given time at maximum capacity. In addition to changing the capacity, you have to be very cognizant of your the surfaces that are high touch surfaces, meaning that many people touch them often. So we're talking about things like door handles, the copy machine, touchpad, cabinet doors, their workstation, conference room doors, conference room tables, conference room chair arms, or even the back. You know, people pull the conference room chair with their hand. The way I like to think about COVID is if you had, in addition to every time you speak, neon coming out of the air particles. You know, if you want to visualize it, it's like this neon green color that is coming out of your mouth as you speak. You can also visualize it as something as you pick it up on your hands. You have glow in the dark paint. Everything you touch gets a little bit of that glow in the dark paint. The surfaces that most people touch will have more of it. You turn off the lights, everything is glowing. So you have to think about your cleaning protocols and installing as many no-touch accessories as possible. We're talking about soap dispensers. We're talking about your trash cans. We're talking about leaving doors propped open wherever possible. And yes, you might be thinking there are surfaces that you can put that are antimicrobial. These will not eliminate, they will slow the growth of bacteria and viruses. They will not eliminate them completely. It is very important to have a sanitizing protocol in place at least 3 times a day and a deep clean in the evenings. Signage is very important. Reception shields, if you're not changing your configuration, the reception person is the one that sees the most traffic in and out of the office. You want to protect them. And then, as I mentioned, maintaining doors opens and limiting touching. If you look at the plan, another thing you'll see is little red dots for sanitizer station. So this is ideally both hand sanitizer and wipes. You want these accessible at all of these high touch surfaces. Ideally, you want them in meeting room. You can think about the wipes like a yoga class where you wipe down any communal tools like the mat before and after use in a class. So people might start to get in the habit of, and you want to reinforce it with signage, meaning a posted sign, ideally printed and laminated so that it can last a longer time. And you clean, for example, the copy machine touchpad before and after use. And you're going to see that different people, different employees have different tolerances for the amount of cleaning, the amount of coming into the office, etc. This is a similar plan, except we're calling it Workplace Group B. If I go back, you can notice here that, you'll notice here, this is Workplace Group A. The pink circles are, the first one is by the window, then you stagger them in this V shape so that you have people 6 feet apart. In the next slide, the seat by the window is empty and their next door neighbor comes in as part of Group B. So you could have office hours for Groups A and Group B, and they know that they have the option to come in at this time. Additionally, this is an example of flow and circulation graphics you can put on the floor. In spaces like conference rooms where chairs and tables get easily moved around, I would recommend putting these underneath the chair in the location that you expect that chair to remain in order to be a 6-foot distance from their colleagues. One person per pantry and copy room, use alternate desks, and you can also add panels between desks if you do not have panels. And then if you lease water machines and coffee dispensers, consider people bringing in their own refillable bottles, and consider leasing or inquire with your leasing company, or if you want to purchase one, about water dispensers that automatically react. You don't have to push a button. It's kind of like the ones at the airport where you put your bottle underneath and it automatically starts, it senses that there's a bottle there and it automatically starts to fill up with water. The restroom capacity has also changed. We're recommending in a restrooms this size with 2 stalls that 1 person go in at a time. One way to provide a visual cue that the restroom is busy is to give your employees lanyards. So, it can be with their building ID card or whatever it is, and put a little hook outside the restroom. If the hook is occupied with someone's lanyard, you know that the restroom is occupied, so you can wait outside. So I also want to talk about air purification. There's 2 types. There's many different types of ventilation systems for workplaces. And if you might have a small workplace, then you might have a window unit. So you might want to use a freestanding air purifier. If you have air vents, that means that you have a mechanical unit, a ventilation unit somewhere in the building. It might be on your floor, it might be on the roof, etc. And you want to inquire about changing the actual filter on that mechanical unit. So you want to look for MERV filters that are typical MERV filtration in buildings is a 9. You might want to go up to a 13 if the system can handle it. So you might want to have your building engineers look at that and not only replace the filters before coming into the office, and filters have to be replaced often depending on the unit's requirements. And you might want to up the number on the MERV filter, MERV filter. Now, if you want to purchase a freestanding air purifier, which you could purchase for your home as well as your workspace, these are some tips for what to purchase when you're looking online, because this is something that anybody could do. I purchased one for my home. So it's best used in air-conditioned rooms. You want to keep this system well ventilated, and you can turn it on and off if you're not in the room. The most important thing is that you have a true HEPA filter, HEPA filter. That is the most important thing, not HEPA-like. No, you want to have a HEPA filter. These are third-party certified to really filter very small particles out of the air. You want to have the right size for the room. What does that mean? That means that if you have a 300 square foot room, you want to buy a filter. You want to buy an air purifier that can filter the air for a 300 square foot room. If you have a 600 square foot room, then you want to buy two air purifiers that can filter 300 square feet each and place them equally at an equidistance within the space. You might want to, ozone is very important. You want it to produce zero ozone. It's also a harmful thing in our indoor air that they can produce. You might want a quiet fan if you care about that. And you want it to be a company that is reputable and is around for the long term, because you have to change these filters often. Some filters you have to change as often as 6 months. You have to see what the manufacturer recommends. This is just a quick way to do area calculations. This is using the example of a store. You have area 1, area 2, and area 3. You basically, in order to get the square footage of your space, you want to multiply the length times the width, and that gives you the total square footage. You will use that in order to be sure that you can purchase the right filter. So this is our recovery readiness roadmap. You can do this yourself, or you can hire consultants like myself or others to do this. You know, phase 1 is assessing the needs for all of your workplace and your workforce. You can issue remote surveys. We recommend pulse surveys. These are shorter surveys, 5 to 10 questions maximum, quick response rates. And we recommend that if you do issue surveys to your staff, that you share results with them when ready in a timely manner, and that you assess what things you are doing so that everybody is informed. They didn't just fill in a survey and heard nothing about what you're doing. Space demand assessment. Who wants to continue working from home? Who is effective working from home? Who needs to come back? Talk to your landlord. What are they doing about elevators? Are they doing staggered deliveries? Are they allowing visitors into the building? So really communicate with your landlord. Review your cleaning protocols. How are you going to change those, etc. And then survey your existing plan. What sizes do you have? What kind of air system do you have, etc. Phase 2, you plan custom solutions for your specific space. Phase 3, you create a document that says, this is our plan of attack. This is everything we're going to do to modify our space. You develop a playbook. Hopefully you share that with everybody so everybody knows what you're doing. And phase 4 is the final, is the implementation. So you have an execution team. Team A is responsible for air quality. Team B is responsible for your cleaning protocols, etc. And then you can implement them as part of your final phase before everybody comes in. This is how we can help. And my contact info is on the lower right-hand side. I hope this is helpful for everybody, and I'm happy to take questions now. And this is, I can just leave it here. This is some resources for different things.
Great information, Ambar. We have a couple of questions. One, good question here from Karen Hamilton, and more directed at Jane, I think. But she had a question regarding the percentage lease deals. Was wondering what happens if, what are the financial considerations? What happens if the business fails? And typically how many businesses in the same building would qualify for something like that? And also if you had a sample agreement.
I can look into a sample agreement. This is typically, so far we've done this with restaurants only, not other types of businesses. And it really has to do with how much risk the landlord can tolerate and how many businesses he or she is willing to take under this model.
Okay, and what about if, I think part of our question that's interesting is what happens if the business does fail? Are these completely contingent on percentage of revenue, or is there some risk, as in a normal lease, for the restaurateur in this case, if that business does fail?
Well, I mean, I think it's sort of game over if the business fails. You'll have to have some sort of workout agreement. There'll be some security deposit that gets kept by the landlord, and some kind of timeline for when you have to exit the building. One of the biggest challenges is a landlord doesn't want you squatting in the space. So everything is about releasing, finding a new tenant. So for instance, to get someone out of a space that's been in a space for and is in the rears, as we call it, you haven't paid rent, it can take a landlord up to 18 months to get you out. So it's much more beneficial if you have open communication with your landlord and really figure out a strategy on how you're going to get up to date, what can you afford to pay, and what kind of space do you need to have to occupy successfully a space that you can afford. So all those factors are better for you to solve for than sitting in a space not being able to afford to pay rent. So landlords are friendlier now, willing to make deals because they have the financial pressures of mortgages and taxes and other continuance that they have to deal with paying. And it costs them a lot more to replace you than to work out a deal with you. So all of that becomes, I would certainly exhaust my security deposit first, figure out what you actually can afford, figure out if you can do rent release, rent reduction, all of those strategies. And even if you need to shrink your space before you think about moving. And you are in a very good position to be able to do a lot of these things now because landlords want to keep you. And small tenants are more important than they've ever been in this environment.
Great, thanks, Jane.
Sure.
Here's one from Judy Gabaldi. This is probably directed more towards you, Ambar. Is a deep cleaning needed nightly? If only one person comes to the office during the week, would a weekly cleaning suffice?
Yes, as long as you know who that person is and you communicate it to your cleaning crew, and the cleaning crew cleans that person's area and also cleans all of the common areas so that when the next person comes in, although honestly, if it's one person a week, the virus, there's varying rates, but I think every 24 hours it dies on surfaces. So in that case, then if it's one person a week, then I think you should be fine.
Okay. Here's another one for you, Ambar. What are the costs associated with office reopening plans that you shared? And what kind of liability issues are employers facing if somebody contracts the virus in their own space, which I think is a very big question right now for a lot of employers.
Yes. So I'm not a lawyer, but we would recommend that employees sign waivers that if they are coming into the office, they are coming in completely. It's a voluntary coming into the office right now, and if they contract the virus, at the office, that they can't sue or litigate the company, the organization. That's one strategy that you can have. And then the other question was about the costs for the retrofits.
Yeah.
Is that it? Okay.
Yep. So
if I go back to here, just to show you an example of some of these things, de-densifying your space doesn't cost a lot of money because you're essentially removing seats and coming up with a plan, right? So the idea, you can pay a consultant like me to do these plans for you, to design beautiful signage for you, to install it for you, to supervise all of it for you. But all of these are things that you can do on your own at a very low cost. If that's part of the question, you just have to remove chairs. There's plenty of signage online that you can buy at this point, like the example that I have here. You have to create a plan, maybe the purchase of some lanyards, the purchase of some sanitizer stations. They come in prices everywhere from $100 to $1,000. Having adequate levels of PPE and purchasing those things. The desk screens, there are screens made out of cardboard with a white cover on them for $50 each. The same way that I've seen fancy plexi and felt and all these other ones for up to $1,000 each. The water dispensers is something you'd have to figure out with your leasing company or online. We lease ours, and most of our clients lease, so I don't have numbers on that. No touch accessories. You could go to Bed Bath & Beyond and get trash cans that have those foot pedals. And you can also get these soap dispensers as well for, you know, under $100. The smart, I forget what the trash cans are, smart something, or you can even get them at IKEA. So all of this can be done very inexpensively. I think the most costly things would be your air filtration. So there are HEPA filters that'll run you anywhere in the, you know, it depends on how large your space is. For a small room that's, you know, an office that's 300 square feet, you can find something for $100, $200 or less. If you want to do wall mounted units for a higher capacity, then we're getting into the 2,000, 3,000. And then replacing filters on your mechanical systems. I would need to get numbers on the filters. That's not readily available to me. That's usually done through a mechanical engineer or the building management people.
Ambar, on that same theme, so I've heard a lot of people considering the UV lights for their ventilation systems or air conditioning units, and there's a lot of different opinions, varying opinions as to whether they're effective, because they are, I would assume, much more costly than some of the things that you just mentioned. What are your opinions? What is your opinion on the UV lights as part of the filtration filters? Does that make sense? Is it effective?
So I will say UV light, there are 3 types of UV lights. It's a spectrum of light. Light is wavelengths. So the human eye can only see certain wavelengths, right? I won't get into that right now, but there's 3 types of UV light, UVA, B, and C. UVC is the one that's been proven to kill the virus. There is still research going on at this time about how that can be integrated into light fixtures and, you know, to be in our spaces. However, UV light has been a part of mechanical systems. And when I say mechanical system, I don't mean a window unit. I mean a ducted mechanical system that lives in a mechanical room that is usually locked and most of us don't get to see. So UV light is usually a part of the fan coil because these coils are cold and they are wet. They create humidity and wetness as part of the process of cooling the air. And so there is UV light that is integrated into some of these systems that actually kills the mold and bacteria that grows into these coils. I do not know of any UV light that actually is used to clean the air because UV light works at intensity and time, with intensity, light intensity and time. And so the way forced air systems work is that you have a fan that's blowing pressurized air into a mechanical duct, usually made out of tin or metal. And so, and the speed varies according to the temperature that air conditioner needs to reach. So I do not think, from my knowledge, and I'm not a mechanical engineer, from my limited knowledge, I do not think UV light, it's fine and been around for the coils and condensation. I don't know that it would really clean the air. And now there's other things about catalytic oxidation filters and all these things. What I know is change your filters so that they trap particles, and that is an easy way to go.
Another question just wants to know that if there are filters that are actually required by law.
So the best practices, I don't think there are laws around filters. What I do know is that there is an organization called ASHRAE, and they are the sort of mechanical engineers. You know, they have everything to do with air and regulations. They have a minimum set of guidelines and best practices. And the truth is that we could all be doing better. If I think optimistically about this virus, I think that guidelines are a baseline and we should continuously be doing better. So ASHRAE sets a baseline. I'm sure it's like MERV 9 or whatever every office building has. And what I'm saying is we need to do better. I think that our air quality, you know, we can't live without air, and our air should be as clean as possible. So we should do better than these ASHRAE guidelines.
Right. I think the point is that no matter what we do, I don't think we're going to be 100% insulated from any of the from this virus. But you know, from a cost perspective, the more we do, the better we're going to be in the long run. So whatever you can implement is better than doing nothing.
Right. And, you know, I ask people too, when we're talking about the cost benefit analysis. Luckily, people are dying less and less every day, which is great. It means our hospitals aren't overloaded. We figured out how to combat the virus when someone is really, really ill. But think about if you're thinking about whether you should spend those $2,000, $3,000 on a freestanding air purifier. What I'd like to think is, what would the cost to your business be if you had an employee or 2 or 3 out of commission for a month, right? So just think about that. It's not only about making sure that everybody is well and good, and of course we want everybody to be healthy, but also it's mission critical for your businesses. So keeping everybody healthy when if they decide to come back eventually, hopefully in the near term.
Are either of you seeing business owners or employers that are testing their employees, actually doing COVID testing or even antibody testing on site?
That would be ideal. We are not seeing it yet.
No, but they have been talking about taking people's temperatures before going into some buildings. I don't think anyone's implemented that. And I think, I just want to mention another point is, what do you do in your space is really important, because if you have visitors coming or you're seeing clients, there's a whole level of protocols that have to be considered for the whole visitor piece. Especially the nonprofits that are serving constituents. So I think that's something else that has to weigh in. And AMBAR has been working both in the nonprofit and the business sector and understands a lot of those needs and how that has to be part of the plan.
So just to throw some, that's great feedback, and just to throw some insight into it, one of our partners from Northwell Health, which is a partner we have to provide wellness services for our clients, I asked a very similar question to them, and they also gave a very similar answer. But I thought important here that Northwell is not actually testing their own employees anymore, because of the fact that they're finding 30 to 40% false positives on these tests. So they stopped that, and they only recommend testing if you're going to test every day. If basically what they said, if you're not going to test every day, then you should consider not testing at all. However, what they are doing, which I think is interesting, is they are offering antibody tests for employers that want to offer that to their employees, the ability to have antibody testing done on site, which I think speaks more to the mental aspect of this, and that having employees feel more comfortable with their work surroundings, and knowing that, again, not foolproof, but I think their thought process is, if you knew a great percentage of the employees that were at work had these antibodies and resist the virus, it might help with the morale of the employees. So I thought that was good information that they provided. To that point, somebody's asking in here, if you're seeing any employers, I know I have not seen this yet, but if you're seeing any employers that are actually requiring employees to bring a negative test. Now, I know I have employers that are asking that question, are you sick? Have you had a fever? Any of that. I have not heard of anybody requiring to show a negative test before they come back to work, unless they've had it already. But how about the two of you? Have either of you seen anything like that?
No, but I just wanted to mention that John said in the chat box that he has had to take a temperature before going into some buildings.
Yep.
And I know that I've heard of certain union members who are essential workers having to take their temperature every day. And if they have to document it. And if there's a problem, they can't go into work. So I think that's happening. But the HR legal issues are really important, and there are things that have to be considered. You can't force people to do things. You have to make it open. I think we mentioned it kind of lightly. People have to be comfortable with going back. No one's supposed to be pressured. So these are very big concerns, and that we're making safe spaces that are accessible to all workers. So you have to consider ADA issues also.
Great. All right, well, it's 12:48, so we've extended a little over our time. If anybody has any questions before we wrap up, I'll invite you to ask them now. Maybe we'll take one more.
And I have one quick question. Yeah, I really want to get an understanding, if I could, Ambar, if you know of any, because all these precautions in place makes me feel comfortable to some extent, but is there a way that, I'm sure there is a way, but maybe we could share how we can test the air quality in our spaces, like, you know, putting all these precautions in place. Unfortunately, this thing is invisible, although I love your visual about the neon paint, and I sort of see it that way too. But how can we actually test our spaces to know that we're clean, so to speak?
So air tests are, I don't know of any commercially available air tests that we could just buy, you know, order online or something, but I will ask somebody who does this for a living. There are people who are responsible for indoor air quality monitors. What I do know is that there are indoor air quality, you know, machines. I don't know if I know that the MTA, I'm in New York City, so I know the MTA does have these freestanding machines that they wheel into different subway stations, and they're essentially collecting information about the air over time. And the way you collect this information is there are like 10 common air pollutants, and more levels of one. Like if you have a level of one, and I apologize, I don't know, I can't remember which one it is. If you have more levels of one, that carries the particulate matter that you should be screening for. So I don't know the answer to your question is the short answer, but I can find out.
All right, thank you. I appreciate your giving me some information on that. Thank you. This is great, really. Ed, sorry to cut off everything, but this is incredible. If we could just make sure we get everybody's contact info, because I think there'll be some follow-up questions for sure.
Yeah, so we do have everybody's contact info, and as always, we will be sending out an email after this event with the presentation deck and a recording of the video. So everybody will be able to watch this again and view the slides. So that will probably go out today or tomorrow. Next week, as I mentioned, our topic will be Social Security. We get asked these questions routinely from employers who have employees that are entering Social Security age and Medicare age. So next week's presentation will be very informative to understand Social Security, what it's about, who qualifies, and integration with Medicare. So stay tuned for that. And again, I just want to thank everybody for joining us today. And once again, thank Ambar and Jane for a fantastic presentation. I believe their contact information is in the deck. So we're going to send that out. We'll copy them on the email we send out. So if you have any questions directly related to any of this or anything you want to ask Jane or Ambar, feel free to reach out after the presentation. I'm sure they'll get right back to you.
Thank
Great.
you, everybody.
All right.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
everybody. Have a great day. Stay healthy.